Hi everybody, welcome back. It's me, Amanda. Thank you so much for watching today. Today I will be answering the top 5 frequently asked questions about my promise, and depending on how this goes, I may do a part 2. Before I start, I will first explain what my promise is so that we all know what I'm talking about. For those of you who are new to my channel, I encourage you to watch my previous videos, all of them in order from the beginning, so that you can more fully understand my story. But if you haven't watched them all yet, this is my story in a nutshell. I know who God wants me to marry because God told me who he was, whatever, when I was 16. His name is Nick. We were friends in high school, but we never dated. We had a big falling out in 2006 because I wanted to date him, but he never wanted to date me. There's a lot more to it than that, obviously. But that's the gist. We went our separate ways, and he married the wrong girl. However, God has promised me that his marriage to her will fail, and when Nick repents and seeks after God, God will bring him back to me, a changed man, fully devoted to God, passionate and on fire. And we will reconcile, date, get married, and be a great witness for God together. Woohoo! That's what I'm talking about when I say my promise. Okay, so now that we understand what my promise is, let's get into the frequently asked questions. You ready? Let's go. Top 5 frequently asked questions about my promise. Number 1. Is Nick his real name? Yes. Funny story, I was actually not going to use his name in my videos at all. And in my very first videos, I don't. My goal used to be to not say his name and not fall out of my chair. My best friend Sandy used to tease me, what if you just blurt out, his name is Nick, as you fall out of your chair? I used to crack myself so much. But one day I snapped and I went on a huge rant about how I was never going to say his name ever, and how dare you even suggest it. Then, like, the next day, God was like, you should use his name. And I'm like, okay. Like, totally chill, complete 180. And Sandy was like, what the heck? I just suggested it as a joke and you bit my head off. Now you're totally cool and gonna do it? And I go, well, you're not God. The reason why God led me to use his name is to show how God himself uses Nick's name, and therefore you can't swap out Nick with a different guy in his place, because God's not talking about some other guy, he's talking about Nick. This is what God said to me about this topic. Quote, it only works with Nick. It is how God is going to get all the glory. It is the testimony that will reach the nations. Everything hinges on Nick coming back because he follows God, etc. Meaning, it doesn't work with anyone else. In other words, yes, you could marry someone else and probably be perfectly happy, which, not gonna lie, sounds pretty good at times. But to live the life God designed for you to have, to reach others for Christ like you always envisioned, it takes Nick by your side to complete the story and fulfill the promise. And it is in the fulfilling of the promise that people will be moved back to God because of it. It just doesn't work with anyone else. Even an old boyfriend like Wade wouldn't work. It has to be Nick. Because that's who God's been talking about this entire time. God's not trying to punish you by making you stick it out with Nick. He's trying to prove himself to not just you and Nick, but to all the other generations of people your story is going to touch. This isn't about you, Amanda. This is about the witness of your life and the hope it will give others around you when they hear it. December 11th, 2019, end quote. You can check out my video, affirmations number 3, we will be a great witness for God, link in the description, to hear more about that and see for yourself how many times God has said Nick's name. However, I do want to point out that I do respect Nick's privacy. There's a whole lot about him I do not share. I don't share his last name, his location, his career, or all the things God told me about him. Some things I want him to tell as part of his story. You understand. Next question, number 2. Does Nick know? This is a very broad question, so I will break it down into several smaller questions. Does Nick know about my promise? Yes, because I told him, starting all the way back in high school, and at every leg of this journey as God directs me. I have been very open when it comes to sharing things with him, so rest assured, he is very aware. Does Nick know God wants him to marry me? I can't answer this one. I assume so, according to what God has told me, but as of the recording of this video, he has not come to me and said, God wants me to marry you. No. Does Nick know I make YouTube videos about him? Yes, because I told him. I sent him an email telling him about it even before I started back in 2018. And I sent him my very first videos I ever made when I posted them so that he could see them. And I told him I would be making more. You can check out those first 2 videos in the description. Did he get those emails? Did he read them? Did he watch the videos? I don't know. He never responded. But I told him, and that's all I can do. Number 3. What if God doesn't want you to be with Nick, and you just think he does because you just want to be with him so bad? If I had a nickel. The answer to this question relies heavily on how you see God and how you see me. Because the truth is, God doesn't work that way, and I don't like Nick that much. Let me explain. People seem to think that you can follow after God and God will just let you do whatever you want without correcting you, even if you're doing things wrong. But that's not true or biblical. God will absolutely correct his children if they go astray. People like to reference Paul in the Bible, saying he thought he was doing everything right, but he was wrong. Yes, I agree. And God corrected him. What you need to understand about me is I have been following God for 30 years. My promise is not a fleeting fantasy that I came up with so that I could be with the guy that I liked. No. My promise is what God told me every time I asked him about my love life or my future husband. And I have documented evidence that spans over 20 years to back up that claim. Think about it like this. What would you do if I were your friend and the guy I wanted to be with chose someone else? You would tell me to seek God and do what he tells me, right? Right. And that's what I did. I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. That's why I trust him. It was God who told me to stick it out with Nick, not me. And that was not the answer I was looking for. Nor did it make me happy. It wasn't like, yay, I get to be with Nick. It was like, oh, come on. He can stay with her and I can go be with someone else. It's fine. But God never changed his mind, ever. Frustratingly so. However, I can't convince you. Only God can. So here is what God said about this topic. Quote, "For people who say, oh, the promise is from God, but you got the guy wrong, what if Moses went to another town's king instead of the king of Egypt, Pharaoh? Do you think God's instructions would have worked? No. Why? Because Pharaoh was the only one who had all the Hebrews kept as slaves. So, to go to another king and try to put God's instructions into practice with him wouldn't work. It had to be the king of Egypt, just like me and Nick. Nick is the only one who has the experiences with me that God talks about. Example, the top of the stairs. So, to try to use God's instructions for Nick with another guy in his place is silly and it won't work. January 11th, 2015. Plus, God knows what he's doing. He knows Nick by name. If he meant another guy, he would have said so. God doesn't make mistakes. God doesn't mix up names. If he said Nick, he meant Nick. January 13th, 2015. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Exodus 3, verse 10. End quote. If you'd like to hear me explain more on this topic, check out my video dealing with other people's disbeliefs, and link in the description. Number 4. Why don't you give up, move on, let it go, and date other guys? And the answer is, I have quit. I have given up. More than once. I have a whole video on it. It's called Quitting. Link in the description. I am not against quitting at all. It is way easier to quit than to keep believing in this thing. Trust me. But you say, but there are other guys. Of course there's other guys. But that doesn't mean I'm supposed to marry them. And I have dated other guys. I was even in a wrong relationship once. What is a wrong relationship? It's a relationship with someone you know you shouldn't be with, and you do it anyway. I did that for almost 5 years. I'm not a perfect saint over here. I'm human, just like you. I like affection, attention, and kisses, just like everybody else. So you may ask, why are you still waiting for Nick after all these years? Twofold reason. One, because God told me to, obedience, and that peace that comes when you know you're in God's will. And two, because my rebellion has never produced any positive results. I don't have any other alternative. God still wants me to be with Nick. I have no money for dating apps, and I have no guys asking me out in real life either. So it's either wait for Nick like God told me to, or be alone forever. And so far, alone forever is winning. And yeah, it does suck. However, obedience is what makes me happy. And I want to be found faithful to what God has called me to. This is what God said to me when I asked him if I could go have a fling back in 2021. He said, quote, "You can have a fling. You can be with someone else. No one is really stopping you. You are choosing to be with or wait for Nick because that's what God asked you to do. You want to be found faithful to God. Sticking it out with Nick isn't I can't be with other guys. It's I'm choosing to do what God wants me to do, using your free will to choose God's will for you." February 25th, 2021, end quote. Along those same lines, number 5. What if it never happens? Answer, it already never happened. We are living it, baby. I'm almost 40 years old and single. I have never been married. I have no kids. I don't have a boyfriend, and I haven't had a boyfriend in years. And I don't like it at all. What people really want to know from this question is, how long are you going to wait for this guy? And the answer is, as long as it takes. It sucks, but that's the truth. You gotta understand, and I have to remember, God is not the type of God to give us false hope. God does not set us up for failure. God is the God of fulfillment. God is not going to let me miss my destiny. It's just not going to happen. God cannot be untrue to his word. He is physically not able to do it. God can only be faithful to his word because God is faithful. He is the essence of faithfulness. What if it never happens? Well, yeah, maybe, but what if it does? God told me, quote, God is not telling you it's going to be like this forever, that you're going to be hoping in the promise and Nick's not talking to you. It's not forever, it's just for a time. Nick will talk to you again. August 1st, 2010. I wouldn't bring you all this way and allow you to get this far and know this much if it wasn't meant to be. I don't give you anything you can't handle. Everything's going to be fine. You and Nick are going to be fine. May 21st, 2010. I will not leave you hanging. I would not bring you all this way and not deliver. November 23rd, 2009. End quote. So I will simply believe it'll happen exactly the way it's supposed to happen and believe God will be true to his word and be happy. One day I will be with Nick and there's not a blessed thing anybody can do about it, and it's going to be awesome. I hope that answers all your questions. Basically it all boils down to I will believe in this promise that God gave me until it comes true, which it hasn't yet, but I believe it will one day. Please feel free to check out all my additional videos in the description. They will answer some of these questions in more depth. If you like this video and want to see part 2, please give it a thumbs up and leave questions in the comments. Thank you so much for watching today. Remember to listen to God and do what he says, and I will see you again in my next video. Bye.